So anime's been taking Netflix by storm recently, and we have some cool new action figures with an anime focus. And I have Cisco Maldonado from Bandai here today to talk a little about these cool action figures.
Thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about your anime heroes line and specifically the ones that are based upon the show One Piece, which I know is really popular on Netflix right now.
So Anime Heroes in general was conceived to be an umbrella brand to bring all the best and most famous anime under one action figure roof, if to use an analogy, right? So we started off with the Naruto line, and then we have Saint Seiya currently. And so the goal of Anime Heroes really is to introduce folks into new anime that they may have even heard of, but haven't really watched before. Mm-hmm. And so as we were looking into like, what's going to be that third IP that's going to fit under the Anime Heroes house, you can't not have One Piece. It's just sort of one of the ones that you have to have just for like, because it's just the right thing to do. And so what we have here today is the first three figures of One Piece, which, as you and your fans may know, is the greatest selling manga of all time. Like, second place doesn't even come close, and it's still going like 23 plus years later, right? There's 868 named characters in the show, and so it's super deep, and like all the storylines are like super involved, and so it's an ambitious undertaking. But I think for our first three characters, we're starting off on the right foot.
And you know what's neat about this particular brand too is it's one of the first animated series that's actually being produced right now as a live action.
Correct.
So now it's the time to get in the bandwagon and learn about all of the history that's going on and get some of these cool figures for your collection or to even play around with. So how did you pick the three figures that we have here? I believe we have Luffy, Sanji, and Zorro.
Correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a close-up camera for your fans at home. So when we were first looking at our first three characters, right, these are the three most iconic characters that pretty much started off on the show, right? We don't want to start off with a character that like starts in like episode 600, right? We wanted to sort of introduce fans. So we have Luffy, right? And he's sort of our main protagonist, and his goal is to find the One Piece, which is that treasure that is at the end of the Grand Line in the world of One Piece. And so it's sort of his story and all the adventures that he gets on. This is Sanji over here. And Sanji is sort of like the best cook of the high seas, and he has this really great like fire accessory that he's looking at. And then over here we have Zorro. And Zorro, his goal in the show is to be like the greatest swordsman of all time. And so these are the three most iconic characters when the show first starts out. And Lord knows there's tons of other characters, but we thought that it was a pretty solid footing to start off with these, right? So these figures here have 16 points of articulation and great detail, right? So even if I show you like Zorro up here, I'm going to try to move him close up to the camera without like falling over myself. Like just the level of detail in his face. Like one of the things that Bandai does better than anybody else is a spot-on interpretation from the anime to the action figure. And if you even look at the detail, like in the anime, he fights with three swords at the same time. And if you look closely, like there are three swords that he has in his sash. Right. And like they come out. So sorry if I'm grabbing this by your head, but like these things here, like they're removable. Oh, right? So it's not like it's a molded piece. Like all of these three pieces come off, right? In addition to his swords here in his hands. So this is really, you know, really best in class in terms of just the detail, and the color is spot on, and just the level of accessories that he has. And even if you look at him like in the box, right? Like this is just sort of one of the ones when you look at it, you're like, yeah, he's got a lot of stuff, right? And these guys are $19.99, which is a fantastic value. So we're really happy how these things turned out.
And what is the size on them?
They're 6.5 inches.
Okay.
So it's like it's your standard action figure. Most in the industry are anywhere from 6 to 7, depending on like the size of the character, right? So like if we were to make an action figure for one of the characters in the show that happens to be like a bigger guy, like he would be to scale, as opposed to a short character that might be like 5 inches if it's like a little smaller miniature character.
Yeah. So they're equivalent to like the Star Wars Black Series or the Marvel Legends lines.
Exactly.
Good. And they look really sharp. Like they just really pop. That's nice design work they did in putting those together. It really does look like the anime from the TV shows there.
Right, and it's really hard, and I was joking to myself on two levels. Well, when they first started making, when I heard the news, right, besides like squealing, when I heard there was going to be a live action version, my second thought was like, how are they going to do it, right? Because if you're a fan of the anime and the manga, you almost think like it's unfilmable. Like there's just no way they can make it happen. But I trust the folk at Netflix, and they'll do a great job. But when it comes to an action figure, right, if you look at Luffy, he's a skinny dude. Right? Not a whole lot of skinny action figures out there. So when I was first looking at like the production models with our R&D folks, I'm like, how is it going to look like a skinny action figure? Like, I don't know. But when I got them out of the first sort of, here's the model of what it's going to look like, I was really, really happy because they really did pull it off.
Yeah,
right?
and articulation looks wonderful on him too. Yeah, I really got some nice posing going with him right there.
Yeah.
So, in addition to the figures looking sharp, the packaging looks really good too. Can you tell me a little bit about what's inspired that?
Sure. So part of the Anime Heroes line is inspired by the actual manga that starts out everything, right? So when this thing started like 23 years ago on Shonen Jump, right? If you look at the actual books, like these things are designed to be like books, such that when you have the entire Anime Heroes line, right? Like you're going to have a bookshelf collection, right? And so the color palette for One Piece is like this lovely blue teal commercial color. For the Naruto line, there's that bright, really vibrant orange, right? And then for Saint Seiya, we have a darker like cobalt blue. So as we add more and more IP to the Anime Heroes brand, we're going to adopt those color palettes such that when you collect all, you sort of have this like manga type set that you can display on your shelf. So that's sort of what inspired not just the look, but then obviously on the back you can see all the different characters. And as the line grows, like there's going to be more characters to show of what's going to be next in the line.
Sure. And if someone wants to get their hands on these, I know I'd like to get my hands on them right now. Well, how can you get them?
Well, they're available for pre-sale right now. I mean, depending on when this is going to air, right? But we announced this line a couple months ago, and it's already like beginning of April. So it's available on Amazon, pre-sale, on GameStop, on all the major retailer websites, Walmart.com, Target.com, and then they'll be available physically to pick up in retail probably by the 1st or 2 weeks of April, depending on the retailer, right? Like some retailers on the East Coast might get their shipment before the West Coast, but in general, by the end of April, they'll be fully available for fans to buy.
Now, have you been able to track anything with the pre-orders to kind of give you an idea of who the most popular character might be?
We have. It's sort of a tie right now between Luffy and Zorro, right? Sanji is a pretty close third, right? But like Sanji and Zorro, they flip-flop, right? One, because Zorro's just a cool-looking character, and he has all those great accessories. And then Luffy, because he's sort of like that main character. So I would already expect him to be doing well. But Sanji's no slouch, right? And even if you look at his facial expressions, it's uncanny in terms of you compare it next to the anime. And so they're all performing pretty solid.
Good.
But as of now, I think Luffy's in the lead.
Okay. And do you have any surprises that you might be able to share with us about anything coming up?
In terms of One Piece or Anime Heroes in general?
Oh, how about both?
Okay, fair enough. Jumped in that one. So let's talk One Piece. So in general, right, and the fan response has been really, really good. And a lot of the chatter that I'm seeing on like Twitter and Reddit, they know of these figures already, right? And they're already starting to say what are going to be the next characters, right? That's going to add to the One Piece collection.
Right.
I already know what it's going to be, right? But before we announce, we have to get it approved and making sure that the art looks just the right way, all the kind of stuff. And without revealing exactly which characters are going to be, I can tease it like this. If you can think about the top of your head, what would be the 5 most logical characters to add next? 2 out of that 5 is going to be in that line, right? We're not going to choose a character that is so deep in the weeds that like people wonder like which one is it? Like when we announce it, everyone will be like, oh, of course, that's what it has to be. And we're following basically the same style of when we announced the new IP for One Piece. So when we said One Piece is coming to Anime Heroes, right? Everyone's like, well, of course it is, right? Now, in terms of what's next for Anime Heroes as a brand, we have some exciting news that we are actually in the the paperwork process of making sure like the licensors and all the business people are getting involved. Very similar. Folks won't be surprised when we announce what the next IP is. They'll be like, well, of course that makes sense, right? Like there's
Right.
tons of great anime out there. And as a marketer, what our job is to do is we want to introduce people into anime in general, right? Because sort of the boat rises with all tides.
Mhm.
And we want to make sure that we take care of our core fans who really want something new, because what Bandai does best is really it's owning that anime category in the action figure line. So
Right.
we want to go deep enough to keep interest with our core fans, but we want to be broad enough such that like they're cool looking action figures and you don't have to wonder too much, right? So like we've had great success with Naruto, right? Like everyone knows Naruto. It's one of the big three that are out there. And so his line is doing fantastic, right? And it makes it easy to sell the rest of the Anime Heroes line because we're going to be in the same section, right? So if
Right.
you're going into a Target or a Walmart and you're looking at a Naruto figure, you're going to see One Piece right next to it, right?
Right.
And by this time next year, when we have our new IP, which we'll announce probably in the next 3 to 4 months,
Okay.
that's going to be next to it also, right? So I can't reveal what that next IP is going to be, but it's not going to be a shock, right? It's going to be like, well, of course they did, because that's just sort of the right thing to do. So, but it's going to be really exciting. I can hint that it's something that people are watching now. So it's not
Okay.
like we have to go so deep into the anime catalog that it hasn't seen the light of day for like 18 years.
Yeah.
It's current. It's what people are talking about now. That's sort of best I can say without getting in too much trouble.
Can you give us a hint of what network it might be on?
I can say it's on Crunchyroll, but that doesn't really tell you much.
Okay, I'll let you go on that one. Well, thank you for sharing these super action figures. We're definitely going to begin our hands on these.